Welcome to the Happy Wanderers podcast. Please visit our new website, growmorejoy.com, and look for our YouTube link. That's growmorejoy.com. So I can't believe that it's been almost 3 years since we've recorded a podcast episode, and a lot has happened in the past 3 years. We all know.
Feels like 10 years.
Yeah. We all know the pandemic, that's been so rough for all of us included. But we also moved to Texas, and we also have a 2.5-year-old daughter who we absolutely love. And it also, takes up a lot of time and focus. So it reminded us, going through these past 3 years and facing all the difficulties and all the changes we have faced, how important the skills that we've learned have been in our relationship. We've been using nonviolent communication and mindfulness, vulnerable practices, and all of the things we speak about in this podcast to stay connected during these tough times. And it reminded us, it strengthened our commitment to sharing these skills and our explorations of these skills with all of you. So we're really thrilled to be back and recording this episode.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, it's been a tough 3 years at times, really, really tough. And something that's really come up a lot is anger, right? I've been angry in situations, we've both been angry in some of these really, really challenging situations. We've also been coaching couples, and that's something that comes up a lot when we're talking to couples too, is just anger just keeps popping up and it kind of takes on a life of its own. And so in this episode, we're gonna talk about anger. We're also gonna talk about, what are the meanings, what are the things that can be hiding underneath anger? And why, when you peel all this stuff away, it can still be a useful tool, right? It can be useful in so many different ways. And we're going to talk about that in this episode. So one of the things I really wanted to share with people is this interesting idea that the Godman Institute talks about. And if you're not familiar with the Godman Institute, they are kind of a research-based husband and wife team that's, expanded over the years. And they're kind of like relationship experts. And one of the things they talk about with anger is they call it the anger iceberg, because anger is an emotion by itself, right? But oftentimes it can be a lot more than just an emotion. And the reason they call it the iceberg is because, as you know, an iceberg, you have like your little bit of stuff floating on the surface, and then so much more is hidden underneath the water that you don't see. And with anger in particular, right, you see that anger on the surface, but there are a lot of other emotions hidden underneath it. And a lot of times, it can be things like sadness. It can be things like, disappointment, regret, shame, and that's
fear.
Yeah,
well.
Fear. Fear is a huge one, and that's actually a perfect example of what happened to me in a story that I'm going to share with you right now. So, about this is back in 2020. We were living in San Diego. It was a really, really difficult time. So we all loaded up in a car and with our newborn baby, and we moved here to stay with your mom here in South Texas. And we were doing that, and before too long, we were like, you know what? This is working out pretty well. Maybe we should stay here. And it really made a lot of sense to move here. And we're kind of like getting ready to pull the trigger on that, and I just kept finding myself getting angry, right? I just kept getting mad. And I really didn't know why.
Can you share why it made a lot of sense to move here?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think the big reason is we were living in San Diego, and it was just the two of us, and we had our newborn. And this was kind of in the beginning of COVID still, and we were very isolated, right? We didn't have a lot of community. We didn't have a lot of support. Your mom and my parents came to visit at times, but it wasn't like this extended period of support. And as soon as we came here, we were able to get that. We were staying at your mom's house. She was able to help out almost every day. So it really just made life so much more bearable. And so making that a permanent move, it really felt like something that would open up so many opportunities for us, just having so much more ease in our life. I think that was a big thing after having so much difficulty for so long. And so we're like, okay, this makes sense. I'd been laid off in San Diego. And so I was pretty free, and, you had a flexible job at the time. And so we're like, okay, we can make this work. And yet I just kept getting mad. And I could feel myself saying, oh, this makes sense. Let's do this. I'm excited about making this change. On the other hand, I could feel this anger just kind of welling up, and I kept trying to tamp it down and, just kind of like ignore it really in a way, but it kept growing and it kept growing. And then I think we started to fight. And it was hard, right? I mean,
It was really hard. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just not pleasant. And it was confusing. Like it was like a mystery. And so we ended up actually talking to, you recommended, I think I talked to one of a coach, was a mentor of yours, John Kenyon. And, he was really, really helpful in helping me look inward, look down and really peel back the anger I was feeling. Why was I so angry? And I realized underneath this anger was this sense of sadness and loss and disappointment, because I realized I had really wanted us to be a family together. The two of us and our daughter really living on our own, because that's what I did when I was growing up. My parents, my family, we were off in Hawaii, and all my family was like in California and elsewhere. And so we learned to rely on each other. And I really wanted that for us. And the interesting thing though is that I had never talked about this really. I had never realized it myself, but the sense of like this decision made it really, I think, clear to me, at my subconscious maybe, that this change was going to come at the cost of that dream. And so I got angry, or I got sad, and then I got angry. And at that point, I can't remember if it was your suggestion or I thought of it or something, but the idea was like, well, how about your parents come, move with us? And I really didn't think that was going to be a possibility, because they live in Hawaii. And, convincing people to move from Hawaii to South Texas, I was not that hopeful. But they actually seriously considered it, and then they said, yes, we want to be there with you. And, specifically our granddaughter. And so that was something that was really surprising to me, how that changed how I felt. Because, I went from being so angry, where I thought that our only options were like, we're either going to move and I'm going to be mad like forever, or we're not going to move and it's just going to be really hard.
And I would be mad.
Yeah, and you'd be mad. And so like once we kind of were able to get back to like what was I actually needing, maybe like some sense of freedom, choice, it was like, okay, well, if I'm losing out on that, or if if that's something that I'm not able to meet in this way, what else can I do? And so, it feels kind of like counterintuitive to be like, okay, well, let's bring my parents here. But I think what that did is it really allowed me to feel an even greater sense of community and support here in South Texas. And that made it feel like welcoming to me.
And I bet you feel more comfortable also relying on your family, right? You've done that all your life, and so it feels maybe more natural and less of like outside. You said you wanted to have your own family identity almost, and rely on each other, and it feels like if you bring your parents in, maybe they're part of that. Is that?
Yeah, I think it's a great point, because my parents are a part of my family identity, and so by bringing them here, I think it's contributing to that sense. And so I really never thought of that until right now.
Me either.
That's awesome. So I just remember going from this place of like feeling hopeless, scared, and then going to this like almost 180, where it's like I was excited to move here.
Yeah. So I would like to share as well. I felt trapped. I had that same feeling, like either we're going to move here and Matt's going to be really mad, or we're not going to move here and I'm going to feel like we missed out on this amazing opportunity to be closer to family, for Anar to grow up with her parents around, and also have an easier standard of living. Things are just cheaper down here, and so I was surprised as well, Matt, when you spoke to John and discovered what was underneath, and then we were able to find a solution came out of that understanding. And it was a moment for me that really illustrated the power of this kind of thinking of how do we look inward and understand what's underneath. I think this is a good time to take a quick break, and we will return after the break to continue our conversation.
Hey guys, if you are sick and tired of being stuck in arguments and fights that just keep blowing up, we have a special gift for you. These are 5 word-for-word scripts on how to instantly defuse any fight. These are the same things that we say ourselves. We use them all the time, and they work whether you're speaking with your parent, your partner, your kids, or your colleagues, right? They're a shortcut to creating connection and understanding. The way you sign up is you go to our website, growmorejoy.com/newsletter, and we're really excited, and we think you guys are going to love it.
Welcome back. Just a quick recap of what we spoke about before the break. Matt had experienced a lot of anger when he was considering whether we should leave San Diego to come to South Texas.
So angry.
Yes. And he was also really confused because it made a lot of sense to make this move, but that anger kept coming up. He talked to a coach and he understood that anger was coming up because it was covering up sadness, grief at this idea of losing his dream of having this independent family unit that he's always imagined for himself. And with that, we were able to kind of think of what some possible solutions. And we thought, hey, what if we invite your family to come out here too? It's, cheaper to live out here than it is in San Diego. And maybe that would work out. And miraculously, they decided to come. And that helped Matt feel that sense of family identity, with including community, being near his parents. And so that made the move worth it and move down here. So this was, again, one of the major times I really saw the power of all of the skills that we're teaching or sharing in this podcast, of looking within, of trying to dig beneath the emotion. So yes, anger's on the surface, so what's underneath? And what are the needs that are underlying that anger and that sadness? And once you understand those needs, solutions can arise. And I know that I went from a feeling of being trapped and scared to relief at understanding and to finding a solution that worked well for both of us. So now I'd like to turn it over to you, Matt, and ask you, I know that you had some thoughts about anger and its role kind of from a masculine perspective, what you've learned in your life, and also from family and friends, from that masculine perspective.
Yeah, this kind of goes out to my male homies out there. But I mean, I think it applies to a lot of people, but like it especially applies to men, that anger, I think, is one of the emotions that men feel like they're allowed to express. It's like, okay, I'm going to express my emotions. Anger feels like a safe thing to do, a safe emotion to share. And, I think there's a lot of reasons why. I mean, one of them is it's just seen as kind of like a more masculine, manly emotion to be like angry and powerful, right? There's like this sense of power in being angry, and it feels good, right? There's like often this sense of like righteousness. And, it's just like this, we kind of talk about anger as being like almost like this surface level emotion, right? It's thinking about the anger iceberg again. It's like, when you stick at on this top level, for people and for men in particular, there's no need to go below because you're like just staying up here on this top level, and it feels good, it feels clean.
So you don't have to admit that you're sad,
you don't have
or
to
vulnerable.
Exactly. It's like none of that stuff applies, when you're angry, because it's like you're angry. You just need to fix something, to solve something, and then the anger should go away. That's the way that I think that I sometimes think, and I think a lot of people tend to think when they're feeling angry.
And it's really outward focused, right? It's like, I know we haven't fully come to agreement on this exactly, but when I notice anger, it's always about that person did something to me, or this other thing happened, or life is so unfair. It's pointing outward and placing blame. And so it kind of prevents you from looking inward. Does that resonate?
It does. Like, I think that happens a lot, where it's you're not taking responsibility, like you're placing blame. You're not feeling responsible. Like, if only they did this, if only that had happened, you're just really mad. I think it's also possible to be angry at yourself, to place blame on yourself. True. Like, why did I do that? I'm so dumb, I'm so stupid. Why did and so I think that does happen too, but it's really hard to go below that, and to look under, because I think anger can mask those other emotions underneath it, and so I think you can get trapped there and not be aware that there's more going on, that there is a path to connection and understanding and resolution ultimately, and so that's where I think anger can be something that is, I think of it as a trap, honestly, for people, because you just get stuck there and you think, this is it. There's nowhere else to go unless something else I fix something. But in a lot of cases, you can't really fix things, you know. And it's just kind of like understanding what do I really need. I think one thing also, just kind of to shift the topic slightly, that going back to the whole men thing is, I can't remember what it was I was asking for, but I was asking advice from a family member about some problem I was dealing with. And I didn't really want to come to you because I was worried that I would be like burdening you. And so I'm like, okay, how do I deal with this? And I asked the family member, and he told me, you got to suck it up, you know, like just deal with it. Like, this is your job. Like, I can't remember if we were married or engaged at that point. Might have just been dating. But he said, like, you're the boyfriend, you know, you're the fiance or whatever. You got to be the man and just deal with it. And she's not supposed to know about it. And, you know, it really made me, at the time I was like, oh, maybe you're onto something, you know, but now I'm looking back, I'm like, that's just not going to lead to any kind of healthy resolution, you know, whether for myself or for us, you know, whatever that situation might have been. It feels like a dead end. That's also just not realistic.
You're like ignoring your needs.
Yeah, you're literally ignoring your needs.
And even if that works in the short term, in the long run, that is going to blow up.
Exactly.
We all have needs, and we all need to.
And I think that is the challenge that happens to people, and to men in particular, is that you kind of have two states, you know, where you're okay, where you're allowed to be manly, right? You can be strong and silent, or you can be loud and angry. And you're strong and silent until you get so fed up, right, of just kind of suppressing those emotions, that you just have to let it all out in some angry outburst that feels like, okay, I'm a man, I can be angry. And, you know, when you're just going back and forth between those two states, you know, there's no path to understanding, there's no path to resolution from that.
Or connection. If you're suppressing your needs, then you're less connected to me, because you're not being vulnerable and open, and I'm not understanding you. And so from a relationship perspective, it might not be the best way to have a deep and vulnerable and connected relationship.
Yeah, and I think for us, the biggest challenges that we've had, I think, as a couple, is when we're not open with each other, when we're not able to express emotion to each other.
Are you looking at me?
Well, no, I'm looking at myself as well. I think this is true for both of us.
Absolutely, I've noticed that. I've also, like, from a perspective of, you know, men are supposed to suck it up and be quiet. In some ways, women are taught that too. You suppress your own needs and your emotions to take care of other people, right? And so I've learned that growing up. And so when things come up for me, I'm scared to express them, because I'm worried I'm going to push people away if I talk about the things that I need. So realizing this now, that there is a parallel from the feminine perspective, at least from my culture or my family culture or whatever, this idea that we push down our needs to take care of others. And it just does not lead, like, not saying anything is good or bad. It's just that strategy doesn't lead to connected, open, strong relationships.
I think that...
Or it's less likely to. I don't want to pass judgment. It's just less likely to.
Yeah, I think people do that thinking it can be helpful in a way that it really is very hard to be helpful, you know, to really lead to any kind of positive, welcome outcome.
Yeah.
So it's a trap. I really think it's a trap. Okay, so we've kind of been piling on anger a lot, and, you know, talking about how crappy it is, but, you know, maybe there's some benefits to it, right? What do you think?
Yeah, so we like to think of anger as being useful, just like all feelings are useful, because it's like this road flare, I think you've called it before, of like, hey, you better look here. There are some unmet needs that need attention. So when anger comes up, we can see it as, oh, my body is telling me that something is going on. How can I turn inward to understand? And sometimes we can turn inward on our own. Sometimes for bigger things, like with you, we need some external help. Like we reached out to John Kenyon. But yeah, they can serve as this really useful indicator that we need some inward focus to understand what's going on. And so we can figure out how to get those needs met.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know it was so helpful, so important for me in the situation when we moved here, because I think like I was trying to deal with it on my own, and I think days, maybe even weeks went by, and there was just like
so much tension.
Yeah, it was just rising tension.
And I felt it in the house. There was tension
Yeah.
in the house. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was really tough, and I think we were probably reaching some kind of breaking point, and we were like, "Hey, can you talk to John? Something has to change." And fortunately, you know, that did lead us to that resolution where everything worked out. And then in retrospect, it's like, wow, that was such a perfect solution. You know, in the very beginning, when I was feeling angry, it felt impossible. You know, it felt like there was no solution. And so it's just amazing what can happen when you're willing to just kind of like take a deep breath, look inward, and like what's underneath this anger.
Yeah, that's right. So we wanted to share that, you know, looking underneath anger can help us diffuse these tense situations, can help us reach resolution. But we've actually put together a guide of words, word for word scripts that you can use to diffuse fights before they even start. When you notice a fight is breaking out, these are word for word scripts that you can say to help diffuse those fights before they blow up. And we've used these words in our lives, and it can actually apply to any relationship. Whether you've been working on relationship skills for decades or you're just starting to explore this space, it can be useful. And so we're really excited to share. I read over Matt's draft and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And it's going to be so helpful for a lot of people. So if you would like that guide, please visit our website, growmorejoy.com/newsletter. Sign up for our newsletter and we'll send you this guide as a gift for you. We've also been working on a project that we're really excited about. So if you sign up for our newsletter, you'll be one of the first to know to get more details about that project. So again, to sign up, go to growmorejoy.com/newsletter to get this guide.
Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much for, welcoming us back, I hope. And it's been a long time, but we're happy to be here and to be sharing all these things that mean so much to us, sharing them with you guys. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. I guess thank you for listening.
Thank you.